Am I the a-hole for refusing to tell my siblings I'm being adopted? My siblings, 11F, 10M and 8F, and I, 15M, are in foster care. Our parent used me as a babysitter from a really young age, 6, with my siblings, and it got worse when our father went to prison. Our mother was almost always in her bed and refusing to leave it, or she'd leave the hours and come back whenever she felt like it. That was 3 years ago, and I told a teacher about it, and she reported it to CPS, and they tried to get our mother to step up, but she didn't want to. When we were taken, my siblings got super clingy, and they refused to let me breathe. I asked if we could be separated, and I was told we needed each other. I ended up running away from the foster home we were placed in together, and I ran away again when I was brought back. The social worker, who's still the social worker we have now, was pissed off that I wouldn't give it time and stay with that family. They were the only people who'd take all 4 of us together. But then the social worker's boss got involved after I left for the 3rd time, and she insisted I should be separated from them if I wasn't going to stay. But my social worker insisted on mandatory bi-weekly visits. I moved to a few different foster families until I met the people I now think of as my parents. I was 13 when I met them. But they're the best parental figures I've ever had, and by far the best foster parents I've had in 3 years. We got really close. I started calling them mom/dad type nicknames, and I talked to them about the stress I feel when I see my siblings. They advocated for me to no longer have those bi-weekly visits, but the social worker overruled them. She insists that one day I'll regret being separated from them, and having some contact is important. A second social worker is now involved in our case, or with me at least, and I'm now eligible for adoption. My foster parents and I talked, and I told them I'd love for them to be my parents for real. My original social worker isn't too happy, but she can't stop it now. She tried talking me out of it and was reprimanded when I told the other social worker. My original social worker is refusing to tell my siblings I'm being adopted, and she said I need to tell them and that she will insist upon it. I told her she can't make me tell them, and I'm not dealing with the anger they'll have. My siblings are already angry I ran away until we were separated. But they're also still really clingy and intrusive in my personal space. So I know telling them I'm being adopted will make it worse, and I don't want to sit through 4 hours of that. My social worker told me to stop being so stubborn and cruel and think about my siblings above myself. My foster parents reported her to the other social worker. Am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for telling my sister I don't care that her house is bigger and cheaper than mine? My sister, 24F, and I, 26M, grew up in a small town that I pretty much got chased out of. I ended up a couple hours away in Chicago. I absolutely love it here. There's things open after 7 p.m. I can walk and take transit everywhere. And there's actual jobs for disabled people like me. A few months ago, I bought a house in the middle of my lease. It's an 800 square feet bungalow in a lovely neighborhood that didn't need any work at all. It cost $220,000. For comparison, my sister bought a 20-year-old, 2,400 square feet house for $170,000 last year. In our hometown, my house would go for maybe $80,000. She's not in a bad area or anything. It just has nothing to offer young people who haven't lived there for several generations. My sister came over yesterday to see the house for the first time, which was an event in itself because she's scared of Chicago. She liked the photos and called it a good starter home. I plan to live here forever, but was pretty disappointed when she actually got to look around. She claimed it was barely bigger than a studio apartment. She asked how much I paid. I told her, and she said, I literally paid $50,000 less for something much newer, prettier, and 3 times the size. I went, okay, congrats, but I don't care. I'd rather buy somewhere I actually want to live even if it costs more. She accused me of being condescending and said that I shouldn't act like I'm too good for our hometown. I told her I wanted to move past this and offered to walk with her to the KFC a couple blocks away. She said she'd rather go home and that I should reimburse her for gas since she drove all the way out, 2 hours, to see me, only for her to have to leave after half an hour because of my attitude. I told her I wouldn't be doing that and that she chose to leave, and she went, "You've turned into a complete jerk ever since you moved here." I told her to leave and she left. I'm not sure who's TA here because we aren't the type to involve family in our arguments. But she's telling her friends who are apparently saying I'm a jerk who just wanted to humiliate a woman. Edit. Thank you everybody for your replies. Maybe half an hour after posting this, I tripped on some uneven sidewalk and broke my phone. I had to get it replaced, thank goodness for iCloud, and the cashier just gave me really bad anxiety. Just know that I appreciate all the comments even if I can't respond right now. Edit 2. Just wanted to clear some things up. I got such a good deal because a friend of my aunt had to go into assisted living. She wanted to sell it ASAP. I was able to pay in cash, and she gave me a good deal because she knew I was looking and that I'd take great care of it. I'm also in a shady, according to tech brothers who never leave the north side area. Also, somebody mentioned that I shouldn't look down on my hometown. I will, and I'm not sorry for it. I faced a lot of discrimination, and I had to leave because a group of people made it their mission to harass me because they didn't like the way I was born.
Am I the a-hole for demanding my parents not include my adopted siblings when we go out to dinner for my birthday? 5 years ago, my 15M parents adopted 2 of my siblings. I'll call them Cassandra, 17F, and Layla, 15F. 2 years ago, Luku, 2M, their biological younger brother, absolute light of my life, best boy, was born and surrendered, so he was placed with us too. Since they were adopted as preteens, a major priority for my parents was bonding with them 2-on-3. And they go to a lot of bonding things. They're constantly bouncing between adoption therapy, family therapy, which feels weird because I'm also part of the family. I'm only included once in a while, usually to be told I need to be less of a show-off, and every single bonding thing they can find. They also take them out after individual therapy, which I 100% support and would never admit to being jealous of IRL, but God, I'm jealous of it. I know it's not the same, but I had 6 bouts over the summer and it was a miracle that they attended to, which did not include the last fight or the family day. At least come for the catharsis of seeing me get whacked with a sword. Sometimes circumstances demand that I'm there, and I moved my schedule to make this happen more often. At first they let me hang to the side, but then they asked that I step back, so I'm not engaging with whatever it is they're doing with my sisters because the bonding activities are supposed to be for them. Last night, I told my parents that I wanted them to do things with me, alone. That they were wildly favoring my siblings over me, and I wanted to have dinner on my birthday with only them. They didn't take it well, and threatened to send me to therapy. We ate in silence for a few minutes. I tried to tell them I won the season-long bracket, and they emphasized how much it was not a time to be bragging or doing anything except apologizing. They said my siblings are traumatized and in need of more support. They also accused me of believing my siblings aren't real, just because I wanted to have some time with my parents where it wasn't about my siblings. After dinner, Layla said she thought it was a good idea and suggested we go out as a family, but paying attention to me in particular for the whole week. That sounds incredibly embarrassing, but amazing. I'd adore that, especially since I want to hang out with my sisters more anyway. Cassandra, though, pulled me aside and said that I had always been a spoiled asshole, but that this was like a healthy man demanding stitches from a poorly stocked first aid kit because everyone else had them and he wanted to feel special. She said I should take a step back and realize that that was an awful thing to ask. I'm split between wanting to run away so my family doesn't have to deal with me and sinking into the comfort of self-pity. I just want my own parents, or my own siblings or somebody, to genuinely care about how I feel or be glad when I do something well.
Am I the a-hole for telling my mom I won't tell her if anything happens to me?
I 34 male.
Parents tend to be annoyingly persistent when they think they know what's best for me. I know it comes from a good place, but it's difficult to have conversations with them because if I express a desire to buy/do anything, they don't simply listen or give an opinion. They actively push what they want onto me. For example, I tell Dad I'm looking into getting a new car and considered car A. He'll ask why don't I look into car B. I explicitly tell him why, e.g. expensive and doesn't suit my lifestyle. But for the next few months he'll ask at least once a week if I've decided on a new car and to look into B again. My mom, who I know isn't into cars, will randomly ask me to look into B. Suddenly, my mom's friend from her karaoke group whom I've never met is suggesting I look into B, etc. Last year I hit a breaking point. I was going on a trip and my parents asked if I wanted a new travel bag. I said my current one's fine. They got a new bag anyways and kept asking me if I wanted a new bag. Apparently, this new bag will be much better, even though they've seen my old bag maybe once. After the fourth or fifth time, I told them on WhatsApp to stop asking me if I need a new bag. I've repeatedly said I had a perfectly good bag that's less than a year old. It's only been used a few times, and if I don't think I need a new bag, I don't like being asked about it repeatedly. The night before the trip, they asked again. I looked at it, and it was smaller than my current bag, so I can't even fit everything I want in it. I went on a long rant about how I dislike how much they try to push what they want onto me. That sometimes what they think is right for me isn't what I think is right for myself. When I tell them explicitly why I pick car A over car B, and they continue to push B, it feels like they aren't listening to me or respecting my decisions. When they tell me that the bag they got will be better than my current bag that they've barely seen, it's like they think I don't know how to buy things for myself. They acknowledged this and then said they would try to do better. Flash forward to a couple days ago. I told the family chat that I found a huge spider in my car that disappeared when I tried to get rid of it, so it might still be in the car. It was meant to be a funny story. My mom sends an article on all-natural spider repellents and asked if I wanted her to make one. I said no. The next day I stopped by my parents' house, and before I left, my mom insisted I hang this bag of herbs in my car to repel spiders. I told her I didn't want it. After she asked 3 more times, I took it and said something like, "Next time something happens, I'm just not going to tell you," in Chinese. She said fine and took the bag back and was visibly annoyed. Was this a harsh reaction? My partner said not the a-hole, but my sister said it might have been a bit of an extreme response.
Thank you so much for watching the video. For more video like this, please subscribe.